Hello, Amanda.
Hello, Nick.
So, I wondered if you'd start by saying a bit about why you wanted to do this film and who it's intended for.
It's for, well, hopefully my students might be interested, or maybe some of my colleagues from my movement studies might be interested. Integrative bodywork, movement therapy. Maybe people looking to come to class. But I've done a lot of things that probably people aren't that aware of.
Yes. So I'm aware that you've got a wide range of interests and influences that you've been involved in over the years that have influenced your yoga teaching. I wondered if you wanted to say a little bit about some of those threads that have come together over the years.
Yes, well, I guess they've been there from when I was really small, because when I was little, the things that I liked to do were to dance and draw. And so I learnt ballet when I was a child and teenager, and art was really important to me. And the first yoga class I ever went to was with my mum and an ex-boyfriend, and I just carried on. My mum carried on for a bit. I carried on for the rest of my life so far.
How old were you when you went to that class?
I was 19.
Right.
And actually my mum's taken it up again now. But I was still, I loved the yoga that I was learning, but I did have a yearning for something more, and I in my 30s I was thinking I was searching for that in the dance stuff that I started to practice. So I tried all sorts of things, African dance, salsa, samba, martial arts such as capoeira, and for 2.5 years I learnt Kathak with Akram Khan.
What's that?
So it's a form of traditional Indian dance. I also did quite a lot of contact improvisation, and I realised that actually what I was searching for was being in relationship with people, which for sure you are in contact improvisation.
Yes.
And it was through practicing contact improvisation that I came across body-mind centering. And in the mid-90s, Donna Afari was writing for Yoga Journal, and the way that she was writing about yoga and the practice and teaching of yoga, I realised she was using principles of body-mind centering, and that really intrigued me. So in '99, I took a big leap of faith and went to work with her in Vancouver. It was a big leap of faith because she wasn't known in Europe at all then. She hadn't taught in Europe.
Yeah.
And she had written the breathing book, but her book Yoga, Mind, Body, Spirit hadn't been published. It was actually published just before the training that I went on in Vancouver. And so she's been a big influence, because until I read those pieces in Yoga Journal, I'd been practicing body-mind centering, but I hadn't appreciated how they could apply to yoga in such a, well, to me, a brilliant way.
What was it that you found in those pieces?
Well, I can remember she was talking about, she was probably, it's a long time ago, but she was probably talking about mouthing pattern and how it would bone in baby back bends, which you'll be familiar with.
Yes.
So we did it last week.
Yes.
Because Nick's a student. I don't really know that I call you a student anymore. But, we've had the other things in our relationship, haven't we? Like trying to write a book.
Yeah.
But,
So, I'm interested. You said a minute ago that you realised what you were searching for was relationship with other people. And how do you feel that the different things that you explored and the body-mind centering, how were they helping you towards that end?
It's very much about relationship. It's fundamental, really, and learning to have therapeutic embodied presence. So the relationship with the client or another person is something to have a lot of respect for, and we really learnt how to be present in our bodies, or at least that was a big part of what we were aiming for, in that if we weren't properly present in ourselves and with the other person, then nothing's going to happen.
Yes.
No healing's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to yoga as well, for sure. I mean, it probably doesn't happen a lot, but ideally it would. Ideally it would be happening.
Yeah. So you're talking about an awareness of yourself and the other person and the dynamic of what happens between the two of them.
Absolutely.
Where does your art fit into?
So somewhere around the time that I first went to yoga, I studied, maybe it was a year before, I studied art in Florence for a year, life drawing. And then when I got back, I wanted to pursue that, but really I needed to go to art school. And my dad said, you've got to get a job. So I eventually ended up at Waddington's in product development, and which I did really enjoy. There was a good team of people, and it was interesting developing the games. And there was a design element that was interesting, and enjoy writing as well. So writing was part of what I needed to do. Editing anyway, editing things. And then I carried on going to classes, and then when my children went away to boarding school, and at that point I went to art school in York, and then a big influence actually was somebody called Pam Rex at Swarthmore, and I used to go all day on Mondays. So I think that was before I went to York, and I went back to her afterwards. And if it hadn't been for Pam, I would never have had an exhibition. So she encouraged me to have exhibitions. And the first one was at Innovation Centre in Leeds, and I had another one in Leeds. But then I did a training with Jabadeo, learning through movement. So they're sort of well known in they particularly provide trainings for people working with people who have disabilities and children and elderly. And so that was a year course, and I had to produce a final piece, and it ended up being written. So I did writing Why We Need Contact. And I also work quite a lot with Katie Dimmock of Touchdown Dance. So her dance company is a mixture of people with visual impairment and sighted. So I went and did contact improvisation with Katie and the company, and made drawings which were part of my piece for Jabadeo. And I made drawings and video and photographs, even though I was not qualified to do those things, but she asked me to do that. So that was interesting. And then she asked me to design the backdrop for a performance. And but I became a little bit concerned that was going to do a lot of work, and maybe it was actually not going to come to that much. So I had an idea for an exhibition. So the exhibition was called Move, Touch, Connect, which was at Yorkshire Dance.
Mm-hmm.
Which should, I can't remember how this relates with Akram. If it was after I was doing dance with Akram, or anyway, somewhere around then. So they were dance drawings of contact improvisation, capoeira, there was some of Katie dancing with children with disabilities, all sorts.
Yes. Mm. I'm just wondering, how would you say, how has yoga helped you on your journey, on your exploring, perhaps in comparison to some of the other movement things you've done, like dance or capoeira? Like, what sort of things does each?
I suppose it's been a constant in that I've always practiced. There've only been 10 days of being disillusioned in the late 90s, when I haven't practiced in the last 45 years, as far as I can remember. Yeah. So I mean, nearly every day of the week, 5 days a week, probably, for as long as I can remember.
Yes.
So a constant, but sometimes it's felt a bit mechanical. In fact, I've even written a blog about that. And so some of the other things I've done really helpful with that, as in authentic movement, which I studied, well, I think I probably began studying that on the Jabadeo course, but also it was part of the integrative bodywork movement therapy training that I did over 4 years with Linda Hartley. So authentic movement's really helpful way of getting in touch with what one really needs, because you're moving from inner impulse rather than outward ideas of making shapes. It's
which it might be with dance or something like that. Mm. That you're more
yoga poses,
and yoga poses as well. Yeah.
So it can be a really wonderful way of kind of getting more in touch with what I truly need, and if I practice that way, it informs my teaching as well, along with the developmental movement patterns, which of course help us to move with greater ease and with better functionality and.
Yeah.
But also the patterns can be a way of kind of freeing things up and getting off the mat. And Donna was big time in favour of getting off the mat.
Right, yes. So...
I'd say is. I think she still is. Although in Iceland I went on a retreat with Donna in May. We didn't really get off the mats, but maybe there wasn't enough space. But I think she would still be in favour of getting off the mat.
Right, yes.
Yoga students, practitioners can tend to be a bit afraid of getting off the mat, I think.
When we do with the blankets and stuff like that? Is that what you mean by getting off the mat?
I do, yeah, mean that. And it's not that common in a yoga class.
Right.
But I feel it's really important.
Yes.
Because of these influences that I'm talking about.
So, presumably you're moving in a direction that you want to, because you keep adding to and refining and shaping what you do.
In a way, it's more of the same. I think, as in, I don't think it's necessary to add, to do what a colleague of mine calls yoga shopping.
Uh-huh.
As in, learning a bit more from here and a bit more from here and a bit more from here. If ultimately it needs to be aligned with one's own core approach.
Yes.
So I'm not interested anymore in working with teachers who aren't aligned with what feels the core of my approach.
Yeah. So you get,
Does that answer the
it
question?
does answer the question, yeah. So you find your own core and your own core model and then build around it.
Yeah. And really, well, as you know from coming to class, you know, we revisit the patterns, but I'm always, for example, or experiential approaches to body systems. But there are endless ways of, endless possible ways that I'm searching for of making those more sort of tangible and useful and available and meaningful
Yes.
to people. So I'll never run out of ideas.
No,
I'll never be bored.
that's good. What is it that inspires you about teaching?
Well, my students, I mean, I have to say, sometimes I've haven't had the greatest of health in the last few years, but and not felt like teaching, but always, if I just need to think about the people and who are coming, and that changes how I feel. I think I really want to see those people, and
So your relationship with the people motivates you to want to help and
absolutely.
to sort of convey what you know.
So I would hate teaching drop-in classes. I did it when I first started, and after working with Donna, that first time, which was, well, I booked it in 1999, it was 2000, and she was saying, it's no good having a mixture of people in the class where you've got some complete beginners and some people who experience it. It's really stressful for the teacher, and it's possibly unsafe for the beginners and
Yes.
and tedious, unsatisfying for the
Yes.
more experienced people. So I would hate to teach that way, because
Yes.
to me it's really important that the relationships I develop with the people.
Mm. How do you see your students change over time as they continue practicing?
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, some change really fast. Like a beginner who only started a few months ago, she said she's beginning to look at a possible new career, and she says it's because of having started practicing yoga. So it's, in a way, she's finding her dharma, you know, destiny.
Yes.
And through only coming for a few months, she said it's big time change the perspective of things.
Yes.
So some people, sometimes some people it can happen quickly.
Yes. I'm thinking within a class of students, each individual has got a different kind of relationship with you and with their yoga and with the journey they're on, haven't they?
There is a lot of admin, as in a lot of people email me, but I do try really hard to reply to everything, because that's about the relationship as well.
Yes.
But it's challenging. They're all important to me.
I don't get a sense from you that you would have any plans to retire.
No. No plans to retire. Maybe do a bit less, but I won't stop until I have to.
Yes. Yeah. Sounds like you're still very actively on your journey.